This could be any township in South Africa, but it isn't. The tragedies of abuse, poverty, and despair facing the people of Chesterville every day are very personal to them, and they own them. Even as the cycle of suffering is repeated across the city, the country, and the continent, every life story is different. These are individuals with a pain unique to each one of them, no matter how similar it may seem to their neighbors. Yes, it all adds up. But to what? These are personal problems, not social ones. These are people, not a population. But when there are so many, what can any of us do? When I first came to Chesterville, the stories I heard broke my heart. The people here will probably never know my name, and that doesn't matter. Just like you, I came because I needed to do something. I came because I didn't know what could be done, but I had to find out. And the stories I've heard still break my heart. Even the same stories. When Nkamasile told me hers, she cried. Orphaned at 5 and kicked out of her foster home not long after. She was not yet a teenager when she and her friend were kidnapped and raped. With little counseling and no justice, she moved between places of safety, state schooling, and distant family members until she fell pregnant at 16. Abandoned to a pregnancy crisis center and then a home for destitute mothers, she considered putting her son up for adoption. But in her family's culture, this was unacceptable, and they eventually took her in, next door to the home of her baby's father. When he committed suicide, it was Nkami who found his body. His family blamed her and pressured her to let them take care of her son. Desperate, she gave in. But when his grandmother tried to set him and herself alight, Nkami took her child and ran again. Shelters for mothers with their children are few and far between in South Africa, and Nkami ended up in Johannesburg. For 2 years she worked, and her son found a measure of normality at a creche, until a relationship with a man who seemed to care turned abusive. When she tried to leave, he beat her into a coma. She spent 3 months in intensive care, and her child was sent back to Durban, where she followed as soon as she could walk out of the hospital. Every time Nkami has reached out for love or acceptance, she's been rejected and betrayed. When she gave birth to twins 2 years ago, again she found herself abandoned. When Nkami told me her story, I cried too. And I cried again the next day. But she doesn't get to cry every day. Her son, Luandile, is 9 now, and she has 3 children to look after. In spite of never finishing school and a short but brutal life, she is a good mother. And she has taken every odd job and grabbed every opportunity to support her family. But it's not enough. Without the grace of others, they have no future. I met Nkami through Ukutula Trust and West City Fellowship. Pastor Peter van Niekerk has been working in Chesterville since the 1980s, and his team understands its people and their pain. They understand that every household story is different, and no one-size-fits-all solution could ever meet their individual needs. Most of all, they understand that for any kind of lasting change to take hold, we need places where that change can happen. West City Fellowship has created programs and places that allow these people to begin to take charge of their lives, to throw off the shackles of abuse, poverty, addiction, and tragedy. This brave team of amazing individuals works with women and children and prisoners, and everyone else whose lives have turned out to be far less than what we would consider normal. They gave me hope. Hope that this community won't be left behind, abandoned to their fate because the problem is just too big. And a chance to be a part of something that does real things for real people every day. Getting involved meant hearing more and more stories that broke my heart, even while they inspired me. I met Chandahari through the Fellowship's Restorative Justice Program. This year he was ordained as a pastor after years of ministry. But his story could have ended very differently. One of 10 children in a very poor Hindu family, Chanda left school at 12 to work in the market. He was 14 when he came home to find his mother had died, and 3 months later, woke to find his father's body hanging from the ceiling of their bedroom. The children were split up between their relatives, and by the time he was 15, Chanda was already becoming an alcoholic. Married and a father at 18, his addiction turned him violent, and he spent his 21st birthday in the cells of a police station. A decade of crime and increasing violence followed, as he led his brothers and cousins through the courts and cells. He had earned 6 suspended sentences by the time he was 31, and then he was convicted of a capital crime. Sentenced to 13 years in Westville Prison, Chandahari believed he'd hit rock bottom. Tormented by addiction and anger, he tried suicide 14 times, and every time he failed, or somebody saved him just in time. Turns out he was saved for a reason. During the decade he spent inside, he became a witness to the wardens and an inspiration to the inmates. But even that wouldn't be enough. The Fellowship supported and embraced his family when he could not. And unlike so many ex-cons trying to make their way back into the world, he walked out into their waiting arms. West City Fellowship have managed to do all this because of the generosity and the support of others. Because ordinary, often anonymous people like you and me believe in what they are doing. Their newest project is a community center, a place where most of their good work can be housed under one roof, and services can be held for the faithful. A sanctuary for the people of Chesterville. They started construction on faith, but the building is far from finished. I am not a part of the West City Fellowship team. I couldn't do what they do. And like everyone else, I have my own responsibilities. But like you, I do what I can. I give as much as I can afford, in money and time, because anyone can do that. And if everyone who hears my story joins me, the story I tell will change. Because the lives of people in Chesterville will change. My plea is that you will join me and be a part of that change by helping these people build their sanctuary. Because if we do not help, who will? If we do not, we leave them behind.
Cold hands losing track of who you are. The words you stole won't save your soul, they can only buy you time. Light a candle or curse the dark, it's all the same to me. Start a fire or drown the spark and shake away the heat. Tell the truth or live a lie, just don't close your eyes. Let down and so spent, you've been holding up the world with your good intent. Help out like you should, it's a burden that you never really understood.